Hello, welcome back to Nine Lesser Carols for Curious People, or as we called it on the night, socially distanced people. By this point, this is not far off when I started feeling the nausea of being up for 24 hours and performing for about 20 hours. And to increase that nausea, a physicist came along and decided to mix cocktails at 8 a.m. And that was Helen Czerski. And then once the cocktail was mixed, I didn't drink it. No one drank it. In fact, it was a tragedy to see it go. But you will see why she made a cocktail. As usual with science, it was never merely for joy. It was also for discovery, and then eventually the joy of discovery. We also have Lawrence Leung doing something quite amazing with the Rubik's Cube. It is remarkable. I think you're going to thoroughly enjoy that. The great singer, songwriter and author Jimmy Barnes. And just enjoy those things. Thank you for watching.
And this is the next person we're going to bring on. I'm just going to quickly read something before I bring them on, because I was thinking that this is someone who I've known for sometimes doing kind of skeptic events and stuff like that. And while I've been thinking about this year and some of the people that we've lost this year, one of those people is James Randi. And James Randi is one of the main reasons that these shows began about 14, 15 years ago, was because 20-something years ago, I bought one of James Randi's books, and I bought The Demon Haunted World by Carl Sagan, and these were big inspirations that led to kind of doing things like Infinite Monkey Cage as well. And Flim Flam is one of James Randi's books that goes through lots of kind of different forms of flim flammery. And there's Isaac Asimov wrote the introduction. And I just thought I'd read this about James Randi. He was probably about 2 months ago that he died. At any other time in history, we would be grateful to any hard-headed realist who undertook to expose knaves and rascals. We would applaud his courage. How much more we must express our gratitude and admiration to someone doing so now at this critical point in history. Randi is one person who has the ability and the temperament for the job, none better. He has no academic credentials and therefore no academic restrictions. He can call things as he sees them. He's not held back by professional politeness in discussing those scientists who not only fall for the paranormal but promote it in their ignorance. He does have a profession that is a useful thing to his task. He's an accomplished professional magician, and there is no trick or illusion that he is not aware of and prepared for, which is more than is true of those scientific innocents who, in dealing with fakery, are so eager to accept the surface appearance that they are easier to fool than children are, for children are, by nature, sceptical. So, as he says at the end, in a nutshell, humanity has the stars in its future, and the future is too important to be lost under the burden of juvenile folly and ignorant superstition. So, James Randi, thank you very much for so many of the wonderful things that you did. And I'm now going to introduce, again, we remain in the Southern Hemisphere, I think for probably the next 2 or 3 people we're going to see. Lawrence Leung. Lawrence, can you... hello. How are you?
Hello, Robin. Can you see and hear me?
Yes, I can. If I can't see you now, it's not due to technology. It's merely due to the a tiredness where I've already noticed the more distant screen. I'm now failing that eye test. So what are you going to... I know you've got a couple of things to show us today.
Yeah, it's kind of about what I've been doing whilst in lockdown here in Melbourne, because we've had one of the toughest restrictions ever. We've probably been in lockdown since March, and we've only just been easing our restrictions right now because our community and our leaders are following the science. So, we've just started releasing ourselves from serious creeping lockdown, and so we're having an okay time right now.
Brilliant. That is great to hear. Here we're still in a slightly kind of confused state. We might eventually get there. So what are we going to see? What are you going to do for us today?
Well, I've got some advice for you guys in lockdown. It's what I've been doing. But I found, especially in the early part of lockdown, the worst part was that my news feed was flooded with annoying inspirational memes. You know, those motivational status updates that went something like, Shakespeare wrote Romeo and Juliet and King Lear in quarantine during the Black Plague. So if you don't discover your inner creative genius in lockdown, you're wasting your time. And soon it was impossible to flatten the curve of people asking me to listen to their new podcasts. It was a horrible, horrible time, Robin. But I've decided to occupied myself with all sorts of other things, and especially in lockdown, it was to improve my skills with the Rubik's Cube. Here's one here. Now, I'm no stranger to picking up skills in lockdown. I learned this when I was a teenager. I taught myself, and I was alone in my room. It wasn't technically a lockdown. I was just a nerdy, geeky virgin, a quarantine-ager, if you will. So, Robin, if you've got a mobile phone with you, I want you to go to the clock app and try to find the stopwatch. So go to your phone and try to find the stopwatch.
Right, where is that? Yep, got the stopwatch. Okay,
let's have a look here. So this is a Rubik's Cube. There, not too bad. So what I'm going to try to do, I'm going to try to solve it as fast as I can. So start hitting now. Let's see. Now, here we go. Now, when I started doing this as a teenager, it was really, really difficult. But the whole way of solving a Rubik's Cube is basically solving it like lasagna. It's basically a layer method. You're not going color by color by color, but you're going layer by layer by layer. And so what I'm doing here is I'm trying to find the correct algorithms which will let me move the pieces to where I want them to go without ruining the good work that I have already done. So now we're on to the final layer now, and this is genuinely a lot slower than I usually do it because I have not looked at the cube before grabbing it, and so I have generally trying to work out the algorithms that will let me solve the cube. So we're almost there now. Final layer, and so this is the point where everybody hopefully will see the fruits of my labor during the lockdown, and here we are solving the Rubik's Cube like that. Now, Robin, I know rightfully as a scientifically minded fellow you're skeptical. We have to prove this cube was really shuffled, so I'm going to need your help here to genuinely help me randomize the mixing of this cube. So what I'm going to do...
Stop the stopwatch, by the way. Is that the right thing to do, or should I... Yep.
Oh, yeah, stop the stopwatch there. Stop it. Yep. What was the time on that stopwatch there?
That was 1 minute and 7 seconds.
Oh, disgraceful. I am so ashamed of myself. My fastest time was jumping out of an aeroplane and solving it in free fall in under 42 seconds. So that was a pretty slow time. But what we're going to do, we're going to try to up that. We're going to try to take this to the next level. So I want you to call out stop at any point while I'm randomly shuffling up this cube. Say stop whenever you like.
Stop.
Okay. I'm going to give it a bit of a random throw in the air, and I'll give it another mix. And say stop whenever you like.
Stop.
Okay, give it a random throw around. Okay, finally I'm going to ask you to try to say something different. I'm going to say either top, bottom, left, or right. Name one of those. Top, bottom, left, or right.
Left.
Now give me a number, 1, 2, or 3.
2.
2. Okay, I'm going to turn it 1, 2. We're going to do it again. Top, bottom, left, or right.
Left.
Left, number between 1 and 3.
2.
2, 1, 2, and then we'll try that again. Spin it round. One final time. Top, bottom, left, or right.
Right. And
right,
2.
And a number 1, 2, or 2.
2.
Okay. Right, 2. Excellent. Okay, now that's a pretty mixed up cube there, Robin. Thank you very much. A Rubik's Cube has 43 quintillion possible combinations. Now, quintillion is a million, which means with your mixing today, this is 1 in 43 quintillion, which means I have not seen this combination before, neither have you. No one's seen this combination before, and this combination will probably never be seen again in our lifetime. Can't understand why I had no girlfriends as a teenager. Now, Robin, you've mixed this up very, very well. To make this more interesting, I'm going to try to solve this Rubik's Cube blindfolded. And because this time I'm going to make sure I have a very good look at this, it's going to be a lot faster. So what I'm doing is I'm working out the best algorithms to solve. Okay, I reckon I can do this in under 25 seconds. All right, Robin?
Yeah.
I want you to start counting down out loud from 25 now.
Okay, oh, hang on a minute. Oh, God, 25.
Just count down from 25. I know you're sleep deprived. Just hear it. 25,
25, 24, 23,
Yep.
22, 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 10.
Stop! Is it solved? Oh. Oh. I picked... Robin, why didn't you tell me I picked up the wrong cube? Okay, well, that's embarrassing. This is exactly how 2020 works. It's the epitome of the unexpected surprise. But let's say we look at every problem from a different point of view. Like if we were simply to change our perspective and see the world from a different point of reference. Like, what if I did solve a cube in under 25 seconds, but I didn't solve your cube, I solved my cube to match your cube. Let's have a look. One.
Brilliant.
Two.
Brilliant.
3, 4, 5, and 6.
That is great.
Whew. Robin, if you want to learn how to solve a Rubik's Cube like this, just Google being Asian. So that's what I did in lockdown. I also did a lot of reading, including reading this book by a friend of Cosmic Shambles. It's The Quantum Universe. Everything that can happen does happen. It's also co-written by Jeff Forshaw. Quantum physics, as we all know, is a little bit bonkers, right? It's totally bonkers, but it inspired me to come up with an experiment to simulate how bonkers this all is. Can you help me out by being a test subject, Robin?
Yeah, go on.
First of all, please answer yes or no to these questions. Have we ever met or discussed this experiment prior to this moment?
We've never discussed the experiment, no.
Have we rehearsed this in any way?
No.
Is this pre-scripted in any way?
No.
Thank you for sticking to the script. But seriously, just to assure people, Robin, honestly, do you have any idea what's going to happen in this experiment?
No.
Wonderful. You're our innocent test subject. I know you're probably super sleep deprived, but for the next few minutes, I need your absolute focus. In this quantum simulation, and it's just a simulation, this piece of paper here is going to represent a particle. And a particle that we are going to drop inside this little chamber here. So it's like its own mini lockdown. And it's job of everyone watching tonight to keep one eye observing this particle at all times. Okay, has everyone got that? Now, in the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, there exists the possibility of a multiverse with infinite number of parallel universes, meaning that you may not be the only Robin Ince. There may be other Robin Inces out there who are living a different life to you. There are countless Robins not hosting a live stream right now. There may be a Robin who hates science. There may be a Robin who hates books. There may be a Robin with more hair. Robin, I want you to close your eyes for just one moment and imagine yourself in one of these different worlds. And you are not our Robin Ince from this 9 Lessons live stream, but imagine yourself as another Robin Ince from a parallel universe. I'm now going to call you Other Robin Ince. Now keep your eyes closed, Other Robin Ince, and in a second, I will ask you to think of a random number between 1 and 250. When you hear a glass go ding like this, I want you to shout out the first number between 1 and 250 that pops into your mind.
113.
113. Thank you, Other Robin Ince. 113. Now, in your mind, I want you to return back to this universe, back to our Robin Ince, and open your eyes. And I want you, the Robin Ince from this 24-hour live stream, to choose a number between 1 and 250 when I ding the glass again. And please, probability will probably dictate that it would be likely a different number. So to simulate this, choose a completely different number when I go ding.
48.
What was that?
48.
48. Okay, excellent. Interesting. Why did you choose this number? Any reason?
No, I don't think. Do you know what? I almost was going to have a number with a 7 or a 3, and I thought we'll avoid those. And so I just so 48 would seem to be the next thing that came up. 48's
the next thing for you. Okay. So that's a random free choice. No one could know you're going to end up choosing that number in this moment, not even you. But here's where things get really weird. In a quantum universe where everything that can happen does happen. Now, Robin, in this universe, you decided to choose, what was the number again?
48.
48. 48. Well, here's the thing, Robin. In this book, there are between 1 and 250 pages in this book. And as you can see, as I flip through the pages, there should be one page which is missing there. Can you see that? One page missing. No other pages missing in the book. And as you can see, it's somewhere between the pages 47 and 49. Can you see that? There's just one page missing.
Yeah.
And here, locked in this quarantine here, is a page, and hopefully it should be page 48. And you know, as a scientist, you need proof. And the proof here is to show that it is definitely matching. And also it says the other Robin choose 113. And that is how bonkers quantum mechanics is. Thank you very much, Robin, for being
you've confounded me. You've befuddled me at a time of weakness as well. Thank you so much, Lawrence. Thank you very much for joining us. Where should people go and find out what you're up to, what you're creating, and all of those kind of things?
Yep, they can find out on my website, lawrenceleung.com, and also following me on Twitter, which is Lawrence_Leung, and also on Instagram, which is Mr. Lawrence Leung. And yeah, I'll leave you with this. It's 2020. It's crazy bonkers like quantum mechanics, but even though we're not in a different universe, we're in ours, the worst alternate timeline for this moment. Let's just remember to pause and take care of ourselves and connect with one another with the world that we do have. So thanks you very much, Robin, and everybody have a wonderful end of the year.
Thank you so much, Lawrence. That's wonderful. I never know how those things, but that's the whole point, isn't it? How do they do? How do they? Yeah, these conjurers. So I better get to the flip chart and find out who is going to be next. I think it is, if we're now actually following, having gone a little bit skew-if, I think it is Jimmy Barnes. So this was a conversation with Jimmy Barnes that I had probably just over a week ago. And Jimmy Barnes, who has written, some of you will know, really fantastic autobiographies. And then this new one is kind of a collection of lots of stories. So it's like, as the other two are very much kind of volumes of taking you on a certain arc. This kind of dips into lots of different experiences in his life. I will. I think also he's going to. Trent, this is something that will perk him up as well, because of course it's been a very, very long day for our producer Trent, who is a huge fan of Cold Chisel, and I think Jimmy is also going to do a Cold Chisel song. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a conversation followed by a song. Jimmy Barnes.
I literally wrote a really great, one of the better set of lyrics I've written for a long time for a band I was in, a band called Cold Chisel. We just did our sort of last album, and I wrote a song called Killing Time, and the story is basically about losing hope and with politics and climate change and everything that sort of goes on, COVID and all that sort of stuff. And I've had this set of lyrics. I've recorded the song, and then when I started to write short stories, I just thought, this is what we, as musicians, what we do. Most of our careers is kill time, really. I mean, like you said, anybody who's been in the entertainment business, or even sales business, you spend more time traveling, schlepping about, renting cars, sitting in airports, waiting for venues to open, waiting for bands to turn up, waiting for crowds to turn up. Then you do actually, Charlie Watts said that, I spend 22 hours waiting and 2 hours doing what I love, and that's basically what happens to musicians. So I thought that, there's a lot of stories, a lot of things that happen to people, and particularly to me, I don't know why, in that downtime. Some of it's, some of it, is probably the same things that a lot of people go through, but there's other things that, just being in the business I'm in, you meet some very interesting and some very strange things happen to you. And so I thought I'd write some stories down about the things that happen while you're sitting around waiting for life to get on.
Yeah. And anyone who knows about your life or has read the previous books knows that there's been kind of, quite a lot of excess in that life. But your memory, I mean, that's the thing that I find fascinating is as you start those journeys of what happened that day, do you actually find yourself almost feeling that it can feel like the first time you've almost really experienced that day?
Well, to a certain extent, I'll tell you first thing I've got to clear up, people say, knowing what you've done to yourself, how do you remember these things? It's a curse. I remember everything, unfortunately, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But what I find is, if I sit at a computer, when I sit and writing these stories, and the same with the other memoirs, I sit down and just the act of sitting at the keyboard and taking myself back, it's like pulling focus. You sit there and slowly, it all sort of, I could see pictures and things and images all become clear to me again. Whereas, you asked me what I had for breakfast yesterday morning, I'd probably have to sit and think about that too. So I think it's just a matter of sitting down, starting to write and letting the story unfold in front of you. And there's a few gaps you have to fill in just because, when I write quite a bit of dialogue when I write, I don't, profess to bloody remember every conversation I've ever had, but I know the tone of the conversations, and I only write conversations really with people that I know well, and I know exactly how they speak, and so you can fill in those gaps, with fairly educated sort of assessments of what we'd be saying, but it's the crux of the story actually just lays itself out to you, and in some cases it's as shocking as it was the first time because you go, oh God, I remember that, yeah.
I've got that same curse, that thing where my wife remembers almost nothing. And so, that doesn't matter. Whereas, but it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Which is there are some people where, and it is it's an emotional memory. It is those flashbulb memories. And I think quite often it seems that there's people where it can happen very early from childhood. Maybe there's been an incident or something like that. And from that point onwards, sometimes a memory which is really geared to being aware of jeopardy as well. That every situation where something might have gone wrong. Well,
that's obviously, over the years, because I've went through a lot of childhood trauma and stuff like that. I've had spoke to a therapist for years, and the therapist used to say to me, he said, because I had memories, I can remember things when I was like a year, 8 months old. I've got pictures in my head, and he said that generally happens when there's been trauma involved. So, if something horrendous or something traumatic in your life has happened, you generally can access those memories if you open the key. And some people don't want to, but in my case, I had to. It's an interesting thing. The other thing about this collection of stories, because they are short stories, I thought they were all just unrelated when I was writing them. I sat down and I was going, oh, remember this, I'll start writing about this. And I just thought they were like interesting stories. But by the time I'd finished them all, I realized that they were probably a lot more, interconnected than I actually realized. And not only that, they were sort of connected back to the other books about that trauma of childhood and about that, trauma that I put on myself as an adult, just by hammering myself every night. So a lot of the stories, as much as they seemed independent and just funny stories, I look at them now and I say, and this was happening as I was writing them. Life has a way of sort of sending up red flags and saying, hey, you should see this and you should be a bit careful. Unfortunately for me, a lot of those things, I missed those flags. And so looking back on them, after, having years of working on myself and trying to deal with that childhood, looking back on them now, I can see those red flags really clearly. And so, the stories, I'll write a story that's funny about going into a fortune teller shop. And I really, it has some very, very deep rooted memory for me. There's a story in the book I talk about. I was in Los Angeles and I looked like I was an extra from Arthur, the movie with Dudley Moore. I was driving from the recording studio home up, one evening in a big limo in California, and I yelled out to the driver to stop at the bottle shop, so I wanted to buy a bottle of vodka, and he stopped at this little strip mall, and there was two shops. There was a bottle shop and a fortune teller shop. And the fortune teller shop looked like the set from the Munsters. It had red curtains and a crystal ball with a light shining on it, a little table. And I was obviously I'd seen this shop, but I wasn't interested in going in. And I walked, thinking I was walking into the bottle shop, and I walked through the two doors were next to each other, and I walked through the wrong door, and I went in, and suddenly got quiet, and I was in there, and I was thinking, oh, this is strange. This is the weirdest bottle shop I've ever seen. And suddenly this woman appears, and she's got bloody scarves tied around her head and this long flowing satin robes. It looked like Stevie Van Zandt from Bruce Springsteen's band, you know? So literally, I'm immediately backing out of this thing. And the story is basically about me klutzing around like a drunk in California, trying to get away from this fortune teller. And as I'm backing out, she's going, you have to talk to me. I have a message for you. And I'm going, yeah, sure. I know. And then she's going, there's a curse on you. I said, well, tell me something I don't know. And then I keep going back. She goes, someone is trying to kill you. And I'm thinking, yeah, sure they are. You know, take a number. And eventually I get out of the shop and I get the bottle of vodka and I go home. When I was writing, I thought it was a funny story. When I was writing the story, I realized that this was one of those moments where life holds up a red flag. She said someone very close to me was trying to kill me. And it was only when I was writing it, I realized how right she was and that it was me that was trying to kill me. So, one of the big red flags in life that I completely missed.
That is the thing. It's the old philosophical phrase: "Life is lived forwards, but understood backwards." You know that whole.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Also, when there's that great thing that we're all unreliable in relation to the past, and everyone has a different perspective in every situation. I presume in everything you've written, especially this one, because it's lots of short stories, and there's so many different people in it. Have you had people saying, "Oh, hang on a minute, you know, Jimmy, that's not how because I love all of the different perspectives you've got in every room where there's even one other person. There's a whole different story going on."
Yeah, well, you know, as you well know, you know, when you write, particularly a memoir, you know, you really have to be very careful because you're writing your own story, and you can only tell it from your perspective, and you can only tell your story. It's not fair if you're writing a memoir. Like I have 5 siblings, and when I wrote about childhood trauma, I couldn't write about their trauma because we all saw different things. You know, we used to hide in the cupboard and hide from our parents, but looking at that cupboard, we all saw different things, right? But in writing these short stories, I had a little bit more freedom than that. But I did run these stories past everybody that I spoke about, and a couple of them, like Don Walker, who's the piano player for Cold Chisel, for instance. Don's been he's been my big brother forever. You know, he's a research physicist. You know, he studied quantum mechanics and pure maths and stuff.
I remember we interviewed him ages ago. We did a couple of dates with him, and there was that great moment where he'd presumed that when we interviewed him, we just want to talk about Cold Chisel. And eventually I asked him something about physics. He went, "Am I allowed to?" I went, "Yeah, you are." And then that became a really long interview. You know, because once you open up the box of quantum mechanics, that's that.
No. Well, he loved so he's been like a big brother to me. But he's also comes from far north Queensland, which we lovingly name the deep north in. So they talk with a real slow Australian drawl. So I'd be writing things from Don. We went skiing with Don in Japan, and I wrote a story about it. And just, and Don, I remember Don, when I first met him, he was like, he's such an Australian, and he wasn't very adventurous with his palate. You go to his house and he'd get, frozen veggies and burnt steak, and that was him cooking. And over the last, 10 years, he suddenly opened up his palate. He's married to a beautiful Iranian girl, and he's opened up his palate, and he's eating all this food. But I wrote the way I know Don, and was talking about sushi and food, and I ran it past him. He goes, "Oh, you're making me look a bit stupid there, Jim." I said, "No, it's like a caricature of you, So just allow me, you become a hero at the end of the story. Don't worry." So I run a lot of these things past people, but like I said, when you do paint these pictures, you're not doing taking a photograph of someone. You're doing a caricature. You're doing a sketch of a moment in time, and so I didn't get bogged down. I wanted to catch the essence of characters and the essence of these people in the stories, because part of the meaning and part of the depth of these stories and part of how they affected me as a human being was the characters that these people were.
Well, that's what I thought. Whether you're talking about, as you mentioned, that bottle shop story, which is fantastic, or whether it's you playing cricket with David Essex. All of them. You get the full landscape and the full feel and the kind of taste, and that's what interests me as well. Which is, as a songwriter, what you're taking is you are cutting away all of the fat to make a song. You're taking one story and you're using so few words, and now turning them into short stories. That's an interesting thing. Like, you're kind of going into reverse now. We go, oh yeah, I can add a little bit more flavor now, and I can add a little bit.
Literally, I went from writing songs where you get it's a completion backwards principle. You write the tag, the hook, the chorus, and you write that, and that's going to say everything in one line, basically. And I went from that to writing the first 2 books, where I just had you might have gathered, I'm not short of a word or two here. I like a chat. So I had this freedom to really open up these stories and put in a lot more detail. And that, for me, it was like a breath of fresh air after just constantly. And the other thing that I'd learned from a lot from writing these books, particularly the first 2. I unlocked a lot of my childhood trauma, the things that really stunted me as a human being and as a writer, and they opened up as I was writing these things down. So now I've found that writing these books, the songs I've been writing since writing the books have been so much more succinct and so much more. So I still can write a catchphrase, a chorus line, but I can tell a much deeper story within the confines of a verse and a chorus, which is so really, I think writing songs helped me write books, and writing books has absolutely helped me write songs.
Yeah, it's such a great book. And I just want to ask you one final thing, which is about, you talk at one point, you're in a recording studio and you talk about the ghosts in a recording studio. How often have you, again, not merely doing this, but since doing this and returning some places, do you find yourself kind of meeting the ghost of you as well? That bit where you maybe return to a recording studio and you think, oh, I remember the kid or the guy who was here, and it does feel like a kind of ghost.
Oh, listen, I mean, that's I didn't write about that in the ghost story but really, I think that's what I inferred the whole time. I mean, the ghosts of that lost person looking for someone to like them, looking for someone to accept them. Look, I see that. I don't see it just in studios. I see it in the mirror every day. I still see it. I go into the studios in Sydney that I walk into. Although I must say the recording business has changed that much. Most studios have become somebody's lounge room now, or bedroom. But there are still some of the big old studios, and I've walked in there and I've remembered, being in there, unable to cope, and the only thing I can do was to let it out by singing, and it chokes me up a bit when I walk into those rooms, and I can feel the knot in my stomach when I and the same thing happens with venues, I can feel the knots in my stomach that I had as someone who was so lost as I was, and struggling to find their feet. And I talk particularly about a place called Rhinoceros Studios, and in that studio I've worked, for years with great people, whether it was Michael Hutchins or whoever, who were dear friends of mine, and I know they were just like me. I can look at the videos. I was in that studio, and I can see us both lost. And I think I just feel so blessed that sort of I stayed here, and I feel so sad that my friends never made it through. There's a bunch of people from Rhinoceros Studio that we've lost along the way that I just think, oh man. I remember with Hutch, I remember sitting there, at that time I was in the throes of alcoholism and drug addiction, and I was afraid for my life. I thought I was going to, I didn't want to live. And I can look back now, and I know Michael was the same. And because we were men, we didn't talk about it. Blokes don't talk about anything too soppy. And I just wish that it's that either of us had the opportunity to get our lives just that little bit more together, so we could talk, because then we might both be here. But it's it's one of those things where you have to be able to feel those spirits, that energy in a room when you walk into it, and I can't let it overwhelm me, but I certainly use it, and I can tap that energy, to go deeper inside myself and find deeper, darker, more meaningful emotions when I perform or when I sing.
Well, I think what you were saying there as well about the not being able to communicate, that's been one of the great things that I've seen a lot of people write about who've read your memoirs, which is part of that writing that has also not just been your permission to speak, but it's given people a sense that they've got a permission to sometimes talk about things which they've felt unable to until they saw that you could.
Well, I'm sure it's the same thing in Britain. I mean, there's a lot of social issues around men's problems, and they talk about toxic, male, bloody. It's just that comes from that thing of being brought up where we don't show our emotions, we don't cry, we don't communicate. You get your way of dealing with life is backhanded down to you, as opposed to being taught to you. And I just think that this is an opportunity. The world's coming to a point. We see the growth of feminism and all. It's coming to a point where we have to not only look at others as equals, but look at ourselves as equals too, and search for more in ourselves, because we're better than what we think we are, and we're not alone. And the more we talk, the better we are.
Anyway, so tonight we're going to do an old favorite of ours. This was a song, one of my favorite songs from Cold Chisel. 1, 2, 3, 4. Kids are driving Saturday afternoon, just pass me by, and I'm just savoring from a million sides. We shed some history this time and out, and I can't stop that long forgot feeling of her. It's time to book a room and stay the night. Number one is to find some friends to say you're doing well. And after all this time, your voice is just the same. And number two is a happy hour, one of two hotels, and siblings have played to you, remember so and so. And number three is never to say her name. And all the flaming trees and the weird driver. Oh, and there's nothing else to set fire to this town. And there's no change, there's no pace, everything within its place just makes it harder to believe that she won't be around. And oh, who needs that sentimental bullshit anyway? It takes more than just a memory to make me cry. I'm happy just to sit here by this table with old friends now. See which one of us can tell the biggest lie. And there's a girl, she's falling in love, and then with the piano to stand. Within your local factory out of work, and you know there's just one man. Under the flame trees plant the weary driver. Oh, and there's nothing else to set fire to the town. And there's no change, there's no pace, everything within place just makes it hard to believe that she won't be around.
Thank you very much. I was just checking my temperature there so I can give that to Jenny. That was Jimmy Barnes. Go and find out, as I said, about his new book, a collection of non-fiction short stories and the new album as well. I'm going to do another quick bop it, Steve, and see how this goes. What was my last one? I was on 52, the last one.
It was really impressive. 52,
right,
I think.
Let's see what happens.
Went from 2 at the beginning of the
All right, hang on, I need
show.
to take the earplug out because I take this very seriously. Oh, drastic drop, 23. That'll help her bloody graph, won't it?
Finally, some meaningful data points.
So, thank you very much, everyone, for who's still watching out there. Some of you might have just got up and just be joining us. We still have loads to come up, including, I should remind you, if you have questions for Chris Jackson, who is doing the Christmas lectures this year with Helen Czerski, and also so questions about geology, about rocks, questions. We've got Samantha Cristoforetti, and we've got Helen Sharman joining us. So if you'd like to ask questions about space exploration, any of those kind of areas, please send them in. So it's all hashtag 9lessons24. Helen Czerski is just setting up now to get the whole, what we're going to find out what she's discovered from the photos that you have sent in. I'll just check actually, who else have we got coming up? Just so Helen's going to be next. Got Ginny Smith again. We've got George Egg, who is the anarchist cook, George Egg. He's going to be cooking some kind of breakfast. My breakfast, by the way, can you guess it, Steve?
Pasta in a cup.
It's pasta in a cup again, yeah.
Can we get
Second
George,
pasta in a cup.
Have you seen George's snack hacker videos?
No.
That's his recent ones have been snack hacks. So basically, how to posh up a cup of soup or whatever. So I don't know why we wouldn't get George right at the beginning. We might have had better food.
Well, it's a waste of bloody time. Just cancel him. I'm a bit annoyed with him for that. Also, I think he's doing it for long enough for me to shave the other side of my face as well.
Oh, that'll
be a nice thing to do. Alice Roberts is coming up as well. That's going to, if you've got any questions you'd like to ask Alice, again, as I said before, hashtag 9lessons24. Lucy Green and Matt Parker are going to be joining us. We've got Alec. Well, I won't even say. We've got the final continent. We will be doing the 7th continent, the one continent we haven't made. That's been all. We've got Ben Moore, Tamsin Edwards again. If you've got questions about climate change and the science around that, and that'll do for the time being. Milton Jones is coming up as well. But now I'm just going to say a quick thank you to some of the people who have donated £100 for the show tonight. That's absolutely fantastic. As I said, for those of you who don't know, if you are just joining us, the charities we're giving to are Doctors Without Borders, aka Médecins Sans Frontières, Mind, the King's Place, also their music charity, and Turn to Us, which is to help people in financial difficulties as well. So thank you very much, the people who have particularly helped to have this, which is brilliant, but anyone who's been able to donate, that's been enormously helpful. Anyone who's kind of just been joining in as well, the social chat and all of those things. Now, it's been very nice to watch that some of you have been kind of communicating with each other, and there has been that real sense of community building up as well, in particular during the 55 minutes when we had a technological disaster. So it was nice to see you just chatting about different things then. So thank you very much, Neil A. Nixon, James Judge, Truth Seeker, Trevor Mathers, Gail McFarlane, Alistair Scott, Mrs. Kathy Pearce, Stuart Walker, Suzanne McLeod, Julie Giles, Richard Ash, Jessica Kaufman, Eleanor Dodd, Fiona Winters, Jane E.B. Smith, Wendy Beaumont, Kate English, Ash Smith, Santu C., Morgan Phillips, Nick Hurley, Alan Benson, Camilla Lennon, Alex and Emma, Dirk Pillat, Jonathan Flowers, Kay Inglis, Ben Townsend, Tev Tate, Bronwyn Boyle, Paul Roth, Linda Later, and the Beaumonts. Thank you very much. The Beaumonts, I like the ending on the Beaumonts there because that does very much have that John Peel. There we go, that was rather nice actually. I've been enjoying the Chesterfields quite a lot, so it's nice now to have a new band from that area, and that is the Beaumonts. Anyway, Helen, how are you feeling?
Do I need to...
Yes, microphones will be, yeah. Are you ready to chat, or do you want a little bit more time to prep?
I can chat while I'm doing, as long as I know where the mic... Should I move the bridge?
Yeah, you're allowed to move the mic. That's your mic. You
mic.
very much do what you need. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to your screens, wherever you are now. We first didn't quite see her at midday, but we did find you at 10 past midday. And you have been sending in your pictures of what you've been up to and what's been going on in your day. And she's now going to show you the science that is in it. So, welcome to this stage, Helen Czerski.
Hello. So, yeah, apologies for being late yesterday.
I'd move it closer to the mic.
The mic be closer? Well, I'm going to stand here.
Can you pull it round and then... yeah,
Does that
is that all right?
And then bring it up. Yes. Sorry, this is all terribly professional, isn't it? It'll be fine there. Maybe someone who knows more than me is going to adjust these things so that it is fine. That's
to be honest, Helen, you're behaving as if you haven't slept for 24 hours. This is very poor.
Well, I had 6 hours sleep, so that means I'm a winner around here. But
Oh,
I was
yeah,
up
you're
till
the winner.
11:30 trying to do all this clobber. It turns out that it's a bit too interesting and a bit too difficult, but I'm going to do it anyway. What were we talking about? Photos. So we've got photos, and there's a thing which is an extension of one of our Cosmic Shambles show and tells from the Sunday Science things earlier in the year. So I don't know which order. So the photos. So basically,
the photos are just going on now, so
okay,
you
so
might
we
want to
should
do
get
it in
going with
reverse
this.
order.
So basically, for those who haven't been watching the Sunday Science question and answer sessions, you can all do your homework later. I got unreasonably excited at some point in November because it turns out, right, you know, people go apple bobbing, right? No one ever goes pear bobbing. Have you ever wondered why no one ever goes pear bobbing? And it turns out there's a reason no one ever goes pear bobbing, and it's because pears sink. And so if you take a piece of apple and you take a piece of pear and you put them in some water, the apple floats and the pear sinks. And this started this ridiculously long sort of exploration. Now, while I'm talking to you about this, I'm going to be doing things here. So this is a bottle of vodka. Now, so this is one of those things where this is really a super late night thing, but it's early in the morning, and hello, early birds, you're going to be brought along with it. The good thing is I have no intention of drinking any of this. At all. Okay, I'm going to have to duck my head down every so often to see what's going on. Right, so anyway, so with the apples and pears, so a bit of digging meant that I found out why this was. And the thing is about fruit that no one had really ever thought, I'd never thought about, is that they do have to breathe. And the thing about fruit needing, gosh, that's interesting. I've just done some kind of magic trick where I've got these kitchen syringes that I bought from a kitchen shop for injecting muffins with, I don't know what you inject muffins with. Anyway, I've just done some trick where I pulled water up into the syringe and it's come out Kahlua coloured. But anyway, so I'm going to keep going with the other one here. Here we go. Right, so apples and pears need to breathe. And there are going to be some bits, Robin, where I might need you to...
I hope you don't mind, I'm having my pasta in a mug breakfast.
That is the classiest breakfast ever. What is brilliant about that is it's in a King's Place mug.
King's Place mug, plastic fork, pasta in a mug. Yeah. Welcome to showbiz, Betty Davis.
Yeah, well, you know what, I've got vodka in a syringe. It's not going to mess around here. Okay, so, right, fruit needs to breathe, and at the same time as fruit is breathing, I am going to be making layers, which I will explain in a bit. Thank you to the camera person who's just put this here. Okay, so fruit needs to breathe, and there we go. So, in order for air to get into the cells in the middle of the fruit, it needs passageways in. And those passageways, well, you know, they have to be air-filled. There's channels. And so it turns out that apples and pears and all other fruit have actually got this network of hidden tunnels inside them where the air can get in. And the thing is that the tunnels are different in different fruit. And apples have really big open spaces between their cells. And so they've got loads of air. So they're basically carrying a life jacket on the inside. But pears are really mean with their tunnels, and they've got really thin ones, like little ribbons that wrap around the cells, so they're the most minimal tunnels possible. And so pears have hardly any air inside them, and so pears float, because the default thing is that living material floats. Living material will sink. You're right, Robin. I am the one that sounds like I've not been slept all night.
Your mistake was having sleep.
Yeah, this is not an advert for sleep.
We have, the more we understand the nature of the universe.
I've just read The Art of Rest and everything. I'm supposed to know about rest. Anyway, so living matter, cells sink. Fruit have little life jackets, and apple life jackets are better than pear life jackets, so apples float and pears sink. But this isn't obviously good enough if you're me and bored on a Sunday afternoon. So what I then did to catch everyone up is to put, I'm just going to check on the status of this. Marginal, but anyway, we'll carry on. So what I did was to put lots of other fruits in water to see whether they floated or they sank. And strawberries sink, lemons float but limes sink. That one's quite interesting. And lots of other fruits do very weird things. So basically fruits have different densities. So the question then is, tell you what, I wasn't planning on doing this on stage, and I wasn't planning on talking while I was doing it, but I'm going to keep going. So
this is like having Andrea Seller here, because we haven't had him on. We're expecting chemistry to go awry. This is good to see this kind of thing.
Yeah, well, it turns out physicists can make chemistry go awry as well, as she pours Baileys into the espresso cup. So, right, we're on fruit breathing. Right, so you can put lots of different fruits. They've got different densities, they sink and float. So the thing that you really want to do then is you want to separate out all that fruit, right? It's no fun if it's just... knowing things float and sink isn't very good. But what if you could layer liquids of different densities? And I suddenly realised this is somebody else's table, and I probably shouldn't make too much mess on someone else's table. So liquids of different densities. So what if you could have a layered system with layers of different density of liquid, and then you put your fruit in, and the fruit all floated at its own level? Now that is an extremely exciting idea. Yes. So then you think about layered cocktails. So layered cocktails can be layered because lots of things in the alcohol cupboard have different densities. So what I'm doing at the moment, so what I put in first, so I discovered last night at about 10 o'clock that the way to make the layers isn't to pour them on top of each other. It's to buy a thing that is designed for injecting muffins with whatever you inject muffins with, and make the layer underneath. Now, so what I've done, you can see there's a layer of Baileys going in underneath a layer of gin and a layer of water, which have mixed a little bit. So, and I coloured the gin red. So the Baileys is going in underneath here. So what I'm doing is I'm making layered alcohol levels, and then I'm going to drop fruit in it to see if we can separate out the fruit. And so it's going to take, so I've got 2 more layers, and the last 2 were the most exciting 2. This is proper showbiz. I'm rinsing out the syringe here. Okay, next up, Curacao, which is always my favourite because it's blue. I'm that childish. I spent a month scuba diving in Curacao for science, helping a friend with her science experiment. And actually in Curacao, they see this stuff, I mean, it's not really, it comes in loads of different colours. But, okay. So next layer down. Ooh. I just prevented breaking a bottle of Curacao all over the stage. Okay, next layer down is the blue one, right in the bottom here. So you might be wondering at this point why all these things have different densities, because you might well know that alcohol, well, you are if you're a physicist. If you've just woken up and you're looking at this, wondering at what's going on, well done, you'll catch up. So there's basically two things going on. So alcohol has a density which is far lower than water. But humans being human put a load of other stuff in alcohol, and most of it is sugar. So at the top, the gin went first. The gin's going to float on top because that is 40% alcohol and therefore less dense than anything else. The Curacao I'm putting in down the bottom, this is mostly sugar, and that's the reason it sinks. So we're getting a lovely layer of blue Curacao down the bottom here, which is going to stay down the bottom because it's sunk. Are you bopping it over there? I think Robin's been sneakily practicing this beatbop thing, because I saw you have the first go yesterday and you were terrible at it.
Oh no, I can't do that one. I have to do this one.
Oh.
Right, let's see what happens.
How's that one different?
For high school.
I think you're giving yourself some kind of weird disease. I mean, like, you're going to end up... It's not good for you at 7 in the morning doing that. I've got one more thing to do and I've run out of containers. Run out of containers. What am I going to do? That's a terrible thing. This is a mistake. Okay. So the last one of all, the thing with the most sugar in, is so I'm going to put the clear in the bottom, and then we can get there, and then we get to do the fruit experiment, which is obviously why you've all got up at 7 a.m. to watch all of this nonsense. Okay, last layer, in we go. Basically full of sugar. We will put the Kahlua down the bottom, and then we start putting things in it. So the thing that what this is about to tell us when we put fruit in it is basically how easy it is for all these different types of fruit to breathe. I look like a Bailey's advert. I just looked at the screen. Okay, you can see the Kahlua going in the bottom here. Dark layer down the bottom. And then we start putting things in it. Oh, it's mixing. You know what? This is a physicist cocktail. One of the things I didn't say about physicist cocktails, I think I've just spoiled it all, is that the benefit of them is you don't have to drink them. And that means that whatever disgusting things you put in them, I've just messed up the bottom two layers because I was in a bit of a hurry and the Kahlua has mixed with the Curacao. I'm sure there's bartenders watching this just screaming. Okay, the point is I've got some layers, and that's probably as good as I'm going to get. So I'm going to start putting things in. So I've got, what have I got? I'm going to start with putting apple in, because the apple bobbing thing is why I started on all of this. I've also got a small chopping board for garlic, so because I don't... Okay, so the apple floats. I'm going to push it around the front here so you can see. So the apple is floating even in the gin. And now pear sank. So I'm going to stick a piece of pear in here. Basically, I'm just going to keep putting fruit in this thing till we all get bored. That's what happens next. So you can see now the pear. So it's just down here. So it's sunk down sank through the gin. It sank through the water. It's floating on top of the Baileys. Now I've got a couple more. Banana's good. Actually, let's have a big bit of banana so you can see it. I'm now dropping fruit on the floor. Okay, bit of banana here. You have to be really careful. when you put them in. Ooh, so the banana's sitting again on top of the Baileys. So it's this. The banana is this one here.
I thought the banana would go further down.
So I spent a long time trying to get fruit to sink through the Baileys, and I failed. But let me show you what. So then I went around the rest of the kitchen. So what I've got here, and I haven't tried all of these. So basically, I tried quite a lot of fruit, and everything sinks through the water. Like some things float in the gin and water. Apple is the only thing that floats on top of the gin. I mean, this is what I did. This is literally what I did yesterday afternoon. I don't know what you were talking to astronauts and stuff. So then I started trying nuts, right? So I've got a cashew nut here. Let's have that one. So cashew nut. Cashew nut sank through the Baileys and is floating on top of the Kahlua. I'm going to have to put quite a lot in. You see that? So it's actually sunk to the bottom of the Baileys and it's poking out into the bottom of the Curacao here. So basically, a cashew nut is the only thing I've found that is more dense than Baileys. And actually, one of the things that is worth noting here is that the Baileys is actually sitting underneath the water. You might think that Baileys is this kind of creamy thing that's going to float to the top. No, Baileys sinks. And that took me a while to work out, because I kept thinking physics had gone wrong, that Baileys was just defeating the laws of physics, because there were lots of fruit that would float on the Baileys and sink in the water. So yeah, let's try an almond. So, I mean, and I didn't actually start. Oh, so the almonds also at the bottom of the Baileys. I mean, I can carry on doing this for a while. But the point is, the reason all of these things have air is that they're breathing, that they're not solid objects. They've got all these tiny channels of air inside them. And you can tell that. Now, the other question that's worth asking is, if what's going on here is basically alcohol and sugar, why do you have to use a load of really expensive alcohol to do this? You don't. You could totally do this with sugar syrup. You do need some vodka or something alcoholic, but the rest of it you could do with sugar syrup. The problem is most fruit floats. So if you're going to try this at home, don't do what I did and raid all the bits of alcohol, the back of your alcohol cupboard you haven't seen for ages. Get sugar syrup and the strongest alcohol you can find, which might be vodka if you live in England, or might be stronger than that, depending on where else you are, and mix those two things and food dye, and you will be able to layer up these different layers. Put fruit into your heart's content. If that's what you spend your day doing, send us a picture. So that, I mean, I can keep. Well,
I'll tell you what. Yeah, we can go over to George Egg now, because he's going to do a bit of cookery, and then we'll come back for the photos. And it's nice that you've given an alibi for anyone who's going, I am not a heavy drinker. I am a secret theoretical physicist working on floating objects.
Well, that's what they all do. They sit in their leather armchairs in universities, and when these big glasses. This is clearly.
How can we make Kahlua tax deductible? Well, if we buy a packet of cashews, we have an experiment for the Christmas lectures.
That is legally true.
I'm sure it is.
Thank you for watching. Thank you to all our Patreon supporters. Please, if you don't support us via Patreon, please do start supporting us via Patreon if you are able to. We are the Cosmic Shambles Network. Bye-bye.